Good morning, YouTube friends. It's your buddy Choppadong. I am coming at you with Week 6 box checkers Thursday morning. Come back a little bit later. We might do the second half of box checkers, but the first half is going to contain your defenses, your tight ends, and your wide receivers. I am a senior content contributor and coach at DFSArmy.com, one-stop shopping for everything daily fantasy sports, from MMA to PGA to NFL to NBA. Whatever it is you look to play, we've got you covered, and we have very, very efficient cheat sheets from all of our coaches designed to cut hours and hours off your research. That's what Box Checkers does for you. I'm going to show you that. If you like this method or you like these ideas, you need to go down to the little window there, click the like, click the subscribe button so you get content dropped to your phone every time these videos get released. Sometimes we'll do some hockey articles. I'm having a little hard time juggling around my schedule this time of year, but we are still focused on football. Chop the promo code CHOP earns 20% off each month. DFSArmy.com is the link. Hopefully you come in and join us and get some of that coaching that's making millionaires every single week at DFS Army. Well, five-figure winners anyway. We popped the Millionaire Maker a couple of weeks ago. That was pretty cool. Let's dive in and look at the live odds, because in the research station itself, I do like it for the positions. I don't like it for defense. So for defense, I do the calculations manually myself. If you're new to me, it's a very, very simple calculation. We'll start with the Baltimore and Cincinnati game. And we look at the point spread and we look at the game total. It's all we care about for finding defenses when it comes to daily fantasy sports. Because what I'm showing is historically, or what I'm going to tell you is historically, defenses are in very, very strong spots to score a lot of points when their point spread, or they are favored by more than 6 points, and the underdog is implied to score under 20 points, and more specifically under 18 points. So those are just a couple of boxes to check, because we can almost always find a couple of options every week. We typically have to pay up for defenses. It's fine. I want 10 points out of you. Philly was on the list last week. How'd they do? So what I'm looking for again is a method which can cut this number down. And you can use a number of sources showing you the actual team implied total. That's fine. But if you just want to do the quick math yourself, you can come in here. Let's call up the calculator really quick, and I'll show you 48 team total. The first thing I do is I divide that by 2 so that I've got it equally balanced between the favorite and the underdog. And then I will take the spread and cut that in half as well. So a 12-point spread is 6. Half of 12 is 6. I will subtract 6 points and get the underdog's implied team total at 18. Then I will add 12, which is the spread. I'll add the full spread back in, and I will get the favorite's implied team total. So 30 plus 18 equals 48. So I double check my math, and I know it's right. So I've got 18 implied points for the Cincinnati Bengals and 30 for Baltimore. Baltimore is going to score, theoretically, 4+ touchdowns. They're in a good spot to focus on that offense this week. You need to dive into that offense. You need to find out, are they going to be rushing the ball against Cincinnati? Are they going to be throwing the ball against Cincinnati? Does Cincinnati have a weak spot on defense with are they weak against tight ends? So that brings Mark Andrews into play, or whatever the case may be. You know the Baltimore Ravens that are in play at this point. It's, Lamar Jackson, it's Mark Ingram, Mark Andrews, uh, Boykin. He's another one. Pardon me while I turn my little phone off here. But he's potentially another one. He's a low target guy, and I'm getting off track here. But these are the names that we're going to try to focus on. The others are very, very deep GPP dart throws. The main traffic is flowing through those main names. You need to look and see, does their matchup of a strength of what Baltimore likes to do as a team match up against the weakness of what Cincinnati likes to do? The game flow in this situation suggests that as a 12-point favorite, Baltimore's going to be running the ball. If Cincinnati is weak against the run, then it is a kind of a double dip, a double green light in that favor, and you might look towards running backs or Lamar Jackson's rushing floor as a very, very, very strong play this week. Okay, but the Baltimore defense is definitely in play when they're a greater than 6-point favorite and Cincinnati is implied to score 18 points or less. Historically speaking, Baltimore is in a spot to consistently hit value. Value to me for a defense is about 10 points. I don't care what I pay for them. I mean, I'd rather pay $3,000 for them, but I'm going to be paying around, if I pay $4,000 to $5,000, that's fine too. Anyway, you can see here that what you're looking for is a lower total and a huge spread. That's what's going to drive that implied team total down by the math I just showed you. If we take an example of the 46.5, and I won't do this for every team, But 23.25, and we only have to subtract off 1 point for the underdog implied team total. It's just not going to be enough. 22.25, it's not going to get low enough. I need a bigger spread to take those points away from that implied team total, or I need a lower over under. So that's how you can quickly scroll this slate. And look, 44, it's not going to get it done because half of 22, take away half a point, you're at 21.5. It's not going to get it done. 55, game total is too high. You're already starting at like 26 points, 27 cheapers. Yeah, you're at 27.5 points to start from. Take away 2, you're at 25.5. This is a shootout type of game. When the underdog has 25 points and the overdog or the favorite has 30 points, this game could go very, very high scoring, or it should go very, very high scoring. I mean, this isn't rocket science. 31.5 or 41.5, I'd like to see a bigger total. If I did 41.5, because that total is so low, divide by 2, and I'm at 20.75, and with a 3-point spread, I take away 1.5, I'm at 19.25. I'm close. I'm under 20 points at least. I don't have a huge favorite, over 6 points, but I am favored. So Washington's kind of on the cusp of consideration. A lot of people will probably target them. I don't know if they got priced up yet or not. They might be cheap. Facing Miami seems to be what everybody was targeting earlier this year, and we'll get back to it. I just don't know if I want to do it with Washington, with Washington's defense. Don't know. Especially the coaching change. I don't know how that thing's going to react. Philadelphia, not enough point spread. Too high a game total. Too high a game total. Now, the shootouts can be fine because there are a lot of throwing back and forth. It can be ripe for turnovers. I'm just showing you the more or less the historically tried and true way. Don't ever take anything I'm telling you for black and white gospel. Use it as something that you're including in your process. And then, yes, there will be, and you'll see with tight ends when we do those next, you'll see where we're going to have to deviate sometimes. 39 with 1 point. So 39, 19.5, take away 1 point, and we're at 18.5. So we're really close. We don't have a big enough point spread for Denver, but Denver's offense is in play. They're favored, and Tennessee's implied to score 18.5 points. Denver would be on the docket, but this is the one that I'm looking for here as well. 43 divided by 2, 21.5, take away 3.5 points, which is half of 7, 18 points. So I've got over 6 points here, over 6 points here, under 18 or right at 18, and under or right at 18 here. So the only two defenses I personally want to consider on that main slate, Baltimore and Dallas. It's really about it. So if I just go into my optimizer or my lineup builder, whichever one I use, and uncheck just about every defense except Baltimore and Dallas, and I mean maybe a Washington, then what else is there? Maybe a Seattle. What else is there? I mean, I've got a couple of options the optimizer can play around a little bit, but I'd ideally like to have mostly Dallas and mostly Baltimore, especially on this slate where, some slates we have 4 or 5 teams to pick from. This slate we only have 2 legitimate ones that check all of the boxes. So I would be very heavily focused on those 2 teams. So short list, very, very short list. Let's use the research station now. Let's dive into our tight ends, because with tight ends we're looking for home teams, favored teams, we're looking for targets, we're looking for work in the red zone. Why? I don't know why home teams and favorites work with tight ends, whereas road teams necessarily don't. I don't know why that is. It just seems to be that way when you back test the trends. I do understand why higher implied team totals favor tight ends, because if there's only 2 touchdowns to go around, it's likely going to running back, a number 1 wide receiver type, the majority of the time. There's not enough left, there's not enough crumbs falling on the ground for the tight ends to scoop up most of the time. So if we're implied to score 2 touchdowns, tight end might not factor in as often. But if we're implied to score 4 or 5 touchdowns, there are some crumbs on the ground for those tight ends. And that's a lot of times the way I understand how that works. So high implied team totals makes a lot of sense. It might be, I haven't done any back testing on, other sites that allow you to back test it, but it would be neat to see if there's a correlation between what has more weight to the correlation. Would it be implied team total, or would it be home or away? Would it be being favored or underdog? But high implied team total would correlate highly with being favored, because if you're going to score a lot of points, odds are you're favored. Anywho, obviously targets matter. So we want those tight ends getting targeted too, and we want red zone work. We want guys getting targeted inside the 20, but we also want guys getting targeted inside the 10 because that team seems to be where tight ends do a ton of their damage is on the goal line. If we're on the 1 or the 2, a lot of times we don't hand it to the running back. We throw it to the tight end as a trick play or an offensive lineman who checks in as eligible. But you see my point. The closer we get to the end zone, the more valuable those targets get for those tight ends to score touchdowns because tight ends don't typically carry, wide receiver 1 or slot receiver volume touchdowns. That's why they're more volatile as a position too, because they're more touchdown dependent typically. We try to find those that are not touchdown dependent, and that's what we find in the home and the favored situations, the high implied team total situations, and of course those getting a lot of targets. So if I was to cut things down, which you've seen me do, just to the high implied totals and the favorites, you're going to notice spread, not a lot. I mean, favored by a little bit, but no real big favorites sitting out here that are super easy to pick on, right? High implied totals, we've got a couple to look at. Home teams, this is why it's not a black and white rule. We'd be limited to Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, O.J. Howard, who's been a schlub this year, Gerald Everett, Chris Herndon. And then, I mean, what else is there? Right? A lot of our Kittles, Ertz, Hoopers, they're on the road, and you can't argue they're not consistent this year. You can't argue they're not being factored in. So, like I said, it's not a black and white rule. We have to know when to deviate. We try to stick within these parameters as much as we can. What we do realize is that when we don't have the guys, all of the boxes checked in our favor, we have to go off script a little bit. What we realize is we're probably getting an increased week of volatility. Now, Travis Kelce's probably okay. Mark Andrews might be okay. The rest of them might be increased volatility. Some of them might smash, but some of them might notoriously disappear because they're on the road. The team doesn't play as well, typically. So they get game flowed out and they have to rely on, better, stronger passing options. They're throwing the ball down the field 20 yards and trying to catch up because they're, behind on the road or whatever the case may be. All of these things come into play. Now, somebody like in a competitive game like a Philly Minnesota, that one might go. Who knows how that might go? But if there was a demolition spot on the road, like if somebody was going down to Miami, yeah, Baltimore's at home, Kansas City's at home. There, Austin Hooper on the road in Arizona. We know attacking Arizona with tight ends is a good thing this year, right? But if Atlanta doesn't play that well on the road and Arizona does play very, very well at home, all of a sudden we might get Austin Hooper game flowed out of it because it's not like Austin Hooper's running 30-yard pass routes. That's Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley type territory. Mohamed Sanu might get game flowed out. If that random scenario pops up, we're not expecting it, but if that happens, you're looking for, that's why we like running backs that are game flow independent. We would like a tight end who's going to factor in to the vast majority of scenarios that are going to play out in the games because it increases his consistency, it increases his floor, it helps his ceiling games too. But that's what we're trying to find. And we're not going to be right every time. That's why I would recommend if you're cutting down your player pool, we got 2 defenses, maybe 3. I cut it down to 2 or 3 tight ends. I'd have at least 2 or 3 tight ends. And if I was building a few, 4, 5, 6 lineups, I'd kind of mix them and match them. I wouldn't just go all in on a guy because he meets all the criteria. I would take some shots on some other guys that are also in pretty good spots because, again, we just don't know which guy's going to really have the good game. A lot of people tend to pay down at tight end. I don't know that this is the week for that. I mean, these are your big guns right here. So let's scroll over really quick and let's look at who's getting targeted. Okay, we can see the team totals. We got a high team total here. We've got a favorite spread in Kelce, and he's getting 8.6 targets per game. You can see a 23.5 in Kittle, a little lower total, but he is getting 7 targets per game. You can see 29 higher total, big favorite in Mark Andrews, 7.8, one of my favorite tight ends this week. I mean, I know he's questionable, but he's probably going to play. He gets used, down close to the goal line. He's one of Lamar Jackson's reliable, most favorite targets. So I'm just going to bank on that. Snap percentage is low. I don't care about snap percentage with tight ends because Mark Andrews gets the targets when he's on the field. Okay. Austin Hooper is another decent shot because we know that Arizona is bad against the tight ends. They are projected to score 27 points and they are favored. The only difference is they're on the road and you get 8.4 targets out of Austin Hooper right now. Right? Will Dissly is another one. Let's see what's Will Dissly's price. It's come up. 6,000, 6,400, 6,300. So for 6,300, Hooper and Andrews are about the same. I'm going to lean on Andrews. Hooper and Dissly, if I need the 400 bucks, I don't have a problem with it. You know, Greg Olsen at 5,500 is okay, but his target volume disappeared the last couple of weeks. I'm looking in here with Greg Olsen's target shares down a little bit. Hooper, Dissly at 5.2. Dissly gets used heavily in the red zone. Let's scroll over to the red zone and take a look at Kelsey, Andrews, Hooper, Dissly. These are the guys I'm more interested in right now on my list. Kelsey inside the 20, Kelsey inside the 5. Kelsey's touchdown regression is coming someday, like Will Fuller's did last week. I'm not going to say it's going to happen this week, but it's coming. He's getting used in the right spots. He's just only got the 1 TD on the year. Mark Andrews, 5 inside the 20, 3 inside the 10. Two of them were caught. I mean, this is where you're eating. 5 inside the 20, 2 inside the 10 for Hooper, 5 inside the 20, 3 inside the 10 for Dissly, obviously getting used there. Jason Witten, 6 and 4. That's a sneaky one. Let's take a quick look at Witten because I think Witten's been a little inconsistent as of late, but let's look at his target numbers because he might be a cheap one. I come down here to Witten. Only 4 targets per game, but he's getting a bunch of them inside the red zone. Only a 25 team total, but they're 7-point favorites. Only a 25 team total. That's interesting. 5,000 bucks. It's very that's kind of tempting. Dallas is on the road against New Jersey. New Jersey's very strong against the tight ends. So you can find this on Fantasy Points a lot. If you want to really dip into here, you can see Kelsey supposedly is a bad matchup. He's matchup proof though. Mark Andrews supposedly bad matchup. They're still going to throw to him inside the red zone. 32 ranked Arizona. That's why we've been attacking Arizona all year. Will Dissly's in a strong matchup. Cleveland not so good against tight ends. Obviously, Greg Olsen not so good against tight ends too, so that's an interesting spot. Maybe he comes back in the fold a little bit. Dallas not so good against the tight ends, but we were actually looking at the Jets who are good against tight ends. So these are the things that you're kind of weighing back and forth. I would still say for me, Andrews, Dissly, maybe Hooper, maybe Olsen, maybe a dart throw on a Witten for cheap. But I've already got those guys in mind. I'm going to have a lot of Andrews, a lot of Dissly, a lot of Hooper. You know, I mean, to me, it's not worth paying up off of an Andrews, or a Hooper to get up another $1,000 to Kelsey. I'd rather put that $1,000 instead of taking a $4,500 receiver. I'd rather take a $5,500 receiver on FanDuel. I'm going to get a little bit more consistent receiver considering Kelsey's not in a smash spot and we're waiting on touchdown regression on him for right now. He might be a little bit more GPP dependent. I know he gets double-digit fantasy points on FanDuel every week this year, but he's $7,500. Double digits at 10 or 11 points is only 1.5x. I want 2 or 3. I know he has the potential to be there. And if you think this is the week to do it, take tournament shots on him. If I mix up optimizer stuff and it starts throwing Kelsey in there, I'm not going to cap his exposure too much. I'm going to let it do it. The optimizer is going to see something that maybe I don't. But what I see is, historically speaking, testing his ceiling this week would be a little bit of an outlier compared to what's been going on so far. Let's dive into matchups. You got my short list there too. Let's dive into wide receivers. Wide receivers are different. We're very heavy on targets. We don't care about home and away anymore. We don't care about the favorite or the underdog status. There's pros and cons to both. If you're the favorite, you had to get to the blowout status, generally bypassing before you turned over to running back. Wide receivers probably ate a little bit along the way. You also have high implied team totals as big favorites. meaning you've got, 2 and 3 and 4 implied touchdowns, which is enough to spread around among quarterbacks and wide receivers. And on the pro side for being a big underdog, you've got lower implied team totals, which mean you're coming from behind a lot, which, and of course, the Vegas spread indicates the same thing, which means now all of a sudden we're pinning our ears back and we're throwing the ball, 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 and your wide receivers benefit greatly from that. So what I'm typically going to look for is targets. And this one I probably will filter out for you because it's a little bit quicker. I'm going to come over here to the 2019 stats, and you're just not that active in the offense. Whoops, I need greater than. You're just not that, greater than or equal to. I like that. So let's go with 6 targets per game. If you're catching 6 targets per game or more, we're going to cut that list down to where the guys that don't factor in a ton, and I'm giving myself margin for error. I really want more than 7. I ideally want more than 8. But if I cut it down to 8, and I'll just go ahead and show you this. If I cut it down to 8, boom, all of a sudden I got no list, man. I don't have a lot of players to choose from. These are the best of the best. If I really wanted to trim my list down, these are going to be it. 8 targets. I would look for games like Julio Jones, high implied team total, Cooper Kupp, high implied team total, Robert Woods, and I would look for big underdogs. Tyler Boyd should be in line for some garbage time. These are the type I'm looking for. Under 18. It's kind of a split scenario, over 27 or under 18, but getting tons of targets per game. That's giving me opportunity at least to get some yardage and to get some touchdowns. Okay, but I want to give myself a little bit of margin for error. So I might come down to like a 6.5. And let's get my list down here a little bit to where maybe I can find some value plays. Let's double the list size. Because I don't want to cut a guy out with 7.8 targets because he doesn't have 8. That's drawing too rigid of a line. I mean, I got to draw the line somewhere, but I'm going to draw it a little bit underneath my actual line. My actual line is 8 targets, 7.5, 8 targets. But I'm going to draw it a little bit underneath that because I want a little bit of wiggle room to see a guy who typically is a guy who gets a lot of targets that maybe had one bad week that's still weighing into these numbers, if that makes sense. So I'm looking for these guys that are getting targeted. I'm going to scroll over here and look for red zone work. And I want to see guys getting targeted more than, at this point in time in the year, I don't really want to see only 2 targets inside the 20 or 1 inside the 10. I know DeAndre Hopkins is a better receiver than he's playing out to this point. And I know he's going to get a ton of targets. And I know he's going to get a trusted workload. But I want to see how, I want to see it translate into touchdowns too. That's where you really test your ceiling. And right now we're not seeing it. So there's a little bit of skittishness on DeAndre. DeAndre Hopkins right now is betting a little bit on the come at his price. We did that with Will Fuller last week and it worked out. Will this be a DeAndre's week this week? We are going up against Kansas City. It's a good, it's a good matchup. So maybe, Deshaun Watson's playing really, really well. He's on fire. So maybe I wouldn't vote against it. I would say that maybe it's still carrying a little bit of risk because we need to see his numbers come back. But the later that it goes into the season, you got to figure that by the end of the year, Nuke's going to have his numbers. So the later it goes into the season, the more he's going to feast at some point. So, I mean, we can have that debate all we want. But I would almost rather have a guy down here like Larry Fitzgerald to get 7 targets inside the 20 and 7 inside the 10. That's big time. They're using him like a tight end. If I scroll over here and see his price, I mean, I've still got, with Larry Fitz, I've 5,600 versus 8,400. What can I do with that $3,000? A lot. Come over here to the Vegas section with Larry Fitz, and I see a 51-point total game, 24 implied team total, 25. That's not much of a difference. It's not smash spot like over 27, but it's still pretty good. And when I scroll over here a little bit more, I see Larry Fitzgerald with 9 targets per game right on Nook's number, right on it, 8.8 each. So I can come over here even a little bit further. If I'm comparing these two, and I'm not saying Larry Fitzgerald is the quality of receiver DeAndre Hopkins is, but I am saying that right now he's being utilized in the red zone more. 8th ranked defense in Houston or in Kansas City, which is really interesting. 8th most fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, or 8th fewest. To Larry Fitzgerald's Atlanta secondary, allowing the most points per game. I mean, if that's not telling you Larry Fitzgerald's a solid play this week, I don't know what would. Again, would I be surprised if DeAndre Hopkins has a bigger game than Larry Fitzgerald? No. But I'm telling you, for $3,000, Larry Fitzgerald looks like a little bit stronger matchup. So I come down this list and I start looking, Julio Jones would be on my list. Michael Thomas would be on my list. Cooper Kupp. See, here's what I see. If we organize this in terms of rating, I don't know how we've got this organized right now, but I would have thought it would be by rating or by sticky hands or something like that. That's by projection. So we've got projected points, which has been pretty good this year. If I'm looking at projected points and points per game, I'm looking at this window right in here that is priced a little bit under, they're in the low 8s versus the mid 8s. I'd be looking, and who's the mismatch here? Odell ain't getting it done, but who's the mismatch here? It's Cooper Kupp at 7,800 versus all these 8,000 plus guys. When Cooper Kupp is averaging 19.1 fantasy points per game, he's projected, at 4th highest on the slate. And if I organize by salary, this is just a fun little thing that I do. If I organize it by salary, yeah, I know you're working on it. Shouldn't be that hard to do. But now when you shift this out, how far does he drop? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's the 6th highest priced and the 4th highest projected. So there's a couple of spots of value built in there. You can do this. This is another thing to do too. If you're having trouble with receivers and you want to find some middling guys, right? Then you go ahead and sort by projections and look for pricing outliers. Cooper Kupp is one. Tyler Lockett might be one. Larry Fitzgerald definitely is one. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald would be what, the 20-something ranked wide receiver, but right now he's top 10 in projections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th in projection. If I sort by salary again, let's go down and find Larry Fitzgerald. This is really kind of surprising to me. I didn't think that I would be making a video and be talking so much about Larry Fitzgerald. But if I come all the way down here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh, I'm stuck. What comes after 20? Can't count past 20. 21, 22, 23. So 23, he was the 11th projected, and he's a 23rd priced. That's tremendous value. Tremendous value. Provided the projections are accurate, right? So I go back into this mode, and again, I'm looking at, and you would even find some guys in here that don't get 7, 8 targets per game. But this is one way to go through things. DJ Moore, possible. Now you're getting down in here to where these guys should, like McLaurin's probably overpriced right now. I know. We're going back to Case Keenum, and it's Miami and whatever. So if you want to use him, that's fine. But in a half PPR site like FanDuel that depends more on touchdowns, he gets them, no doubt. But I would be probably a little less high on him at 6,400. If he was down in here in the 5s where he should be, 58, 5,900 even, I'd be all about it. But now if I've got 600 to burn at the end of my lineup, then I would upgrade off of I don't know if I'd upgrade off of a Larry Fitzgerald for a Terry McLaurin, but I would upgrade off of I don't know, a Courtland Sutton for him. These are the decisions that you have to make, and this is part of what makes box checkers fun. So hopefully you've gone through this, you've seen a little bit of what we do. You've got a pretty short list of receivers here to work with. You've definitely got a short list of 2, 3, 4 tight ends, 2 defenses. And it doesn't take that long to do it. I'm doing more explaining than I am. I mean, if I just would to bang through my process, I'd get you this video would be 12 minutes long, 14 minutes long. So if you stuck around to the very end, I really do appreciate it. Like and subscribe to the channel as usual, and contemplate coming inside to dfsarmy.com where we talk a lot more about this kind of stuff, and we can talk more in depth, and I make little private videos for members all the time. They ask me a question. Sometimes it's easier to show them in a video, so I just whip up a screen share, 8-minute video, and just answer their question that way, and they get a lot out of that. That's the visual coaching that we do inside DFS Army that really nobody else in the industry does. And it would be one very, very, very important reason to become a member here. And you can see it helping because you can see our track record out on Twitter. You can see all of the winning that our members are doing. You can see how a lot of these guys started off as intermediates and are becoming experts very, very quickly. And that's what the whole site and the whole community is built around, is getting you to that next level. So coupon code CHOPKNOX 20% off. Follow the link down there in the comments section, and I'll be back later today or tomorrow with the quarterbacks and running backs. Take care, guys.